Well, so for some of the individuals who are just now joining, I am Rayshawn Pilote, currently the program manager for Atlanta Black Tech. Right now, I want to take some time for all the panelists to introduce themselves. I'm sitting here, like Joey mentioned, I'm actually sitting here with some rock stars. Shout out to Khadijah from my hometown, Savannah, Georgia. So I'm gonna stop right there, and I'm gonna let you all introduce yourselves. Just quickly give your name and then also the organization that you're representing today. We can start with Candace, and then you can pick who's next.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Candace Mitchell. I'm the founder and CEO of Myavana. We're a beauty tech company that invented hair AI that can analyze your hair from a photo and tell you which products are best to use. We are eliminating trial and error and making the beauty industry personalized for the first time, using scientific analysis and creating a unique hair ID for every consumer. My background's in computer science from Georgia Tech, so go Jackets. And I'm going to toss it over to Barry.
Knew you were coming my way. Hey everybody, Barry Giggins here. I'm one of two managing partners at Collab Capital. We're an early stage venture fund here in Atlanta, and we focus on investing in Black founders building innovative solutions to huge consequential problems. Operator at heart, so I still think like an operator, but I've transferred to the other side, and now I'm the one writing the checks. And I will pass it over to my teammate, Baisha.
Hey there, Baidra Crumbly, investor at Collab Capital. I also co-lead the Black VC Atlanta chapter. Background, I like to say, centers at the intersection of finance and technology. So banking, corporate finance is my previous experience. To Khadijah.
I knew you were going to do that. Hi, everybody. I am Khadijah Robinson, Savannah native, along with Rayshawn, Spelmanite as well. I have way too many jobs, but amongst those, I am the entrepreneur in residence for Black Ambition. I lead an incubator program for the Center for Black Entrepreneurship, of which Grant is the executive director, and I'm also general partner at Fictive Ventures. We are raising and deploying a $5 million fund to invest in extremely early stage Black founders with all Black LPs. So I'm just generally rooting for everybody Black. Grant.
All right. Thank you, Khadijah. I'm Grant Warner, Executive Director of the Center for Black Entrepreneurship, a partnership between Spelman Morehouse and the Black Economic Alliance. The goal for the center is to create for Black entrepreneurs the networks, the access to capital, the capacity building that other entrepreneurs take for granted.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I'm pretty sure everyone is just glad to hear all of you all's background. So we're going to jump right into it. This question is actually for everybody. So, this year I would say has started off very eventful. That's the term I'm going to use. I'm going to stay political. This year has started off very eventful. So, my question is, have you all's priorities have changed? What would you consider your top 3 priorities for this year? And I'll start with Candace again.
Eventful is definitely an understatement. But I will definitely say that we were positioned for such a time as this, being pioneers in beauty tech, and specifically in AI. Our number one priority is integrating hair AI across the entire retail industry, so that Myavana is the new industry standard solution for personalization in the hair care category. So we launched with Ulta last year, at the top of last year. Pleased to say we're growing tremendously through Ulta, and we have many other retailers next. And so, what's important to understand is how our industries are changing. The political landscape only intensifies that. But I do believe it's time for us to own our lanes in our market so we can stay at the forefront of it. In addition to that, leading a mass adoption to our mobile app. There are several hair communities on Facebook and Instagram that we plan on migrating to Myavana. because it's very important. Again, it was already stated by Isaac about who owns the technology that we are driving adoption on. And so that is our number one priority right now, B2B for Hair AI to personalize retail, and on the B2C side, growing our app, because we, again, must put our stake in the ground in the industries that we're leading. And so that's number one. Number two is Mayavana certified. So we just released our seal of approval to designate hair care products safe for Black women. We actually have a virtual hair club going on right now discussing toxic ingredients in beauty hair products that have affected Black women's health. The number one being relaxers, and how that's impacted the leading cause of cancer in Black women. But not only that, a lot of harmful ingredients in the hair products that we've been using. And so Mayavana certified designates, number one, the products that are best for you, their unique hair ID. We got a little future techie right here. But also across salons and retailers to make our experiences personalized. I don't have to tell the story of how much we have been underserved in our market. I think that has only changed in the past decade, but we want to be at the forefront of that from a technology standpoint. And then the third thing is looking at new frontiers, right? So we actually opened our first retail store in Uganda. That is our launching pad for retail, creating a beauty tech experience. So think about the Apple Store, but for beauty products. It's technology driven, but also Africa is the new frontier. So there's a lot going on here in the United States, but our markets are oversaturated. So we must keep the global context in mind, and how we're building, and we'll be distributing products in Uganda as well. So heading back to the motherland ultimately, but those are the top key things that we are focusing on.
Dope stuff. I actually just got back from the motherland. All right, so I'm gonna kick this over to Barry.
Yeah, my life is a lot more simplistic on the investor side, and the number one goal for us this year is to close out Fund Two. So we're in the middle of a pretty big fundraise, and so we'll be making an announcement later this quarter. So closing up that fundraise now here in Q1. Super excited about the what that will allow us to do and continue to do, which is investing in Black founders. And the other part of my job is, and that is will continue to be the goal this year, is finding the best founders, the best Black founders around the country. And so one of the initiatives that we do have this year is to build out the largest directory of Black founders throughout the country, particularly in the technology and innovation space. And so that will allow us hopefully to have the best deal flow for the demographic of individuals that we invest in. And the last thing that we do, which is a goal of ours every year, will continue to be a goal this year, is to dive in with the top quartile founders in our portfolio, and make sure that they are alive and that they thrive and that they go, raise their next round of capital, close their next customer, so that we can drive that growth and create billion-dollar Black-led startups.
Dope stuff. Dope stuff. Next, I want to kick it over to Baija. What are y'all working on? What are your top three things for Black VC this year?
Yeah. So as you all know, Black VC is the largest nonprofit membership base for Black venture capital investors in the U.S. For the Atlanta chapter, we're focused on, we have three core objectives, I'd say, for this year. The first being, we're wanting to host events that are focused on professional development for VCs and angel investors, industry forums, like, I don't know who attended our AI forum last quarter, but that was extremely just powerful and helpful for everyone who did get to attend, and then focus on social connections as well. The second core objective is to create and propel more Black angel investors. So just getting you all kind of more involved in what we do, and active in our chapter to connect with VCs, to share deal flow, to share insights, so on and so forth. And the third is to really improve connectivity with policymakers. So how can we get our communities more involved and knowledgeable on the public sector's work that is relevant to the startup and investor ecosystem? So working on something actually right now with, well, more to come, but we're working on something now that'll be a strong partnership to let us know like what's happening now in the Georgia House of Representatives, what bills are coming up, when are they moving to Senate for voting, and how will they impact us?
Perfect. Khadijah.
So my top 3 priorities are Black people, and Black people. I have no other priorities for this year. I am single-mindedly focused on the 78% and the 92%, and that's it. So not people of color, not women of color, not minorities, not underrepresented. I'm thinking about Black people, and that's it. And to that extent, I am leading this incubators for Black startups in Atlanta with the Center for Black Entrepreneurship. I'd say a key priority for me, though, is closing Fictive Ventures First Fund. So this is a $5 million fund. And when we close it, to my knowledge, it will be the first venture fund that closes with all Black LPs investing in all Black-led companies. And I hope and pray that it is not the first. My goal is to make it the first of many, show that this model is viable, that we can invest in one another, that we can build each other up, we can make money together, and we can fuel innovation amongst one another. So I am prioritizing all things Black, and honestly, also prioritizing action. Like, I'm tired of being mad online. I'm tired of the panels where we talk about the things that we already know. I am prioritizing action and making SHIT. I don't know if y'all are going to allow me to say how I really feel on this panel, but I'm prioritizing making the SHIT happen in real life. So those are my priorities.
Absolutely. And Grant.
Yeah, I'll be political. I'll say the year got off to a horrible start given the last 24 hours or so, particularly if you're interested in expanding opportunity. So the 3 priorities that we have at the center is expanding early stage support for Black founders. As Khadijah mentioned, we have a program called Lift, which is preparing founders for investor readiness. So coming up next week, we have the demo day. Certainly would love to see this community also show up there. But we have a couple other programs that we're starting, including one which is a little earlier stage called Ignite, which is about opportunity assessment, lean startup. So looking forward to that. Expanding access to early stage capital, second focus. So we worked with Goody Nation on Equity Wings earlier this year. We have another focus cohort that's going to launch in a week or so, trying to activate our alumni community, the accredited investors, to form an angel syndicate around the AUC. And then thirdly, we have a student venture fund that we're also starting. So today actually was the first class related to that fund, trying to introduce our students to venture, and they will actively invest in the startup ecosystem. So the hope is between those two, the syndicate and the student venture fund, we'd have somewhere around $1 million to put into the Atlanta ecosystem. Along with that early stage capital, we have a program we're doing with UGA called FAST that supports applications to the SBIR STTR program from the SBA. So the federal government largest investor in early stage startups in the country by transaction. So we want to make sure that our community gets their fair share. So we provide consultants that help you develop the proposals so you can apply to those programs. The third thing that we're focused on is research and really moving kind of from research to action to inform policy, developing a community of practice around entrepreneurship research. So, something that people don't know is how understudied this is. I had a colleague at Howard when I was there. They did a study, looked at 6,000 articles and 30 journals. They could only locate 13 that were focused on Black entrepreneurship. So, again, if you want to manage something, you got to be able to measure it. So we have to have people engaged and looking at that. So those are our 3 priorities.
No, absolutely. I definitely want to stay there for a little while. Specifically speaking about the Lift incubator, that you all. So I've had I was blessed with the opportunity to come in and sit with some of the founders and judge some of the panels. So Khadijah, my question to you is, with some of the founders that have come through the Lift program, what gaps have you noticed, and how has the Lift program helped meet those gaps? And also touch on the event that you all have Friday.
Yeah, so I in 2025, I'm working my butt off to try to do whatever I can to bring more support, resources, and community for Black founders. And so, Lyft Incubator is a huge part of that. And not just specific to the Lyft Incubator, I work with early stage entrepreneurs all over the place, all over the country through Black Ambition, through my consulting work, through investments that I've made, all kinds of things. And what I'm seeing across the board is not even particular to Black founders, but I think just founders in general right now. Like, I don't know what y'all been reading in TechCrunch or Forbes under 40, but like entrepreneurship is not sexy. It is not fun. It is not always like roses, and it is not about the clout, and it is just not easy. And I have seen so many entrepreneurs focusing on everything except going out and getting the customers the hard way, like doing the hard things. With my first company, which I sold in 2 years, I was outside while I was still practicing law, which is like a 13, 14-hour a day job, with my clipboard, going to events, like manually talking to people that I did not know, getting customers the hard way, which I think is necessary for really early stage tech startups. And a lot of folks are focused on everything except customers. And investors, great. Marketing, branding, great. Activations, fantastic. You're on a panel at South by Southwest, that's nice. But unless it means more customers, that actually doesn't mean a lot. And so just knowing that Black founders have a higher bar, that we're expected to have more traction, we're expected to be better, have our stuff together at a higher level, it has been very interesting to see that a lot of businesses, for whatever reason, are not focused on the business of the business, which is the customers. They're thinking about all the other things. So really trying to bring that focus back to, this is great, all the things that you're doing, but how do you get customers? Because if you don't have customers, and if you don't have a plan for getting customers, and you don't have something that you've done, you figured out, and you just need money to be able to execute on, very few people are going to want to actually invest in you so that you can just go and like try to see if some Facebook ads will work. So we've been thinking a lot about customer acquisition and how to really focus founders on the essential part of a startup, which is offering a valuable solution to a problem that people actually want to pay for. It sounds simple and fundamental, but I think it's very lacking in the general startup environment now. So we've been very focused on that, and generally, building upon that to bring more startups to investor readiness, where they would be ready for a check from my fund, or from me as an angel investor, or for some of the people in this chat. It is key. I think as much as we rail about the lack of capital for Black founders, we also have to get our stuff together and make sure that we are building a business and not an Instagram page that makes us feel good.
No, absolutely. That that also helps me segue into the question I wanted to actually ask Barry. And then ask Candace afterwards. But Barry, what do you believe the challenges are between Atlanta investors and Atlanta founders? Oftentimes we continuously hear from founders, there's no capital for us to raise in Atlanta. We have to go elsewhere. And from investors, you know, at times they may feel like there are not enough quality companies here. So where do you feel like the disconnect is? Where do you feel like the challenge is?
Great question. The challenge is education. And it goes both ways. There are, and I'm not just speaking on venture capital investors, I'll get them that in a second, but just capital in general. There's a lot of Black money in Atlanta. And unfortunately, a lot of that money has not been educated on how to invest into technology focused companies. They scale different, they raise money different, they provide liquidity in different time frames. And so what that does is that scares them away because they're not educated on how to diversify their portfolio into the tech space. And then that leaves a lot of founders sour because they're looking at high net worth individuals like, man, you have all this money. I have this great idea. It's right in your wheelhouse, and I can't get 25K from you. I can't get 50K from you. I know you got it. And so I think that education piece on the investor side, I mean, that's actually something that Baisha touched on that we want to start to chip away at with Black VC this year. It's just educating investors, high net worth individuals on how to start dipping their toe into the early stage investing space so that, as Khadijah mentioned, when she's getting founders ready, they have a place to go. Um, and then on the founder side, it's also education. I talk to a lot of founders every single year, and we have to do a better job of coaching our founders in Atlanta on what the proper steps and the proper avenues are to grow and scale a technology business, because every technology business does not scale the same. There are what's called lifestyle businesses, which I think has gotten a bad connotation, but there are a lot of millionaires running around with lifestyle businesses. But lifestyle businesses typically they can get to profitability faster. There's something that an entrepreneur can kind of bootstrap on their own. Typically, a venture capitalist is not going to write you a check, but it's great for a high net worth individual that is looking for some quicker liquidity. And so starting to educate founders on the type of company that they are building and then pairing them with the newly educated high net worth individuals on those lifestyle businesses. I think we shy away from that a lot of times because it's not the unicorn, it's not the $1 billion company. But honestly, those are a lot of the companies that I see. If they would take that route, they would have a lot higher probability of success. The second part on education for founders is truly understanding what venture capital is. And so when we think about the companies that get venture capital, these companies consider that you've now made it to the NBA. Like it is so few people that make it to the league. And that's venture capital. There are a lot of people out there that are working really, really hard. They're sacrificing, they're investing in themselves. And the fact of the matter is that it is so competitive. I talk to my son about this with basketball every single day. It doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter how hard you work, but there's always somebody else working a little bit harder or working just as hard as you, and you guys are going to compete for those couple of spots that are available. At Collab, we write 6 checks a year and we invest all around the country. And so I think understanding what I see a lot of times from Atlanta founders, and honestly, this is not just Atlanta. I'm going to focus on Atlanta because that's what we're talking about. But these are founders outside of the big, trio, which is San Francisco, Boston, New York, is that they just don't think big enough. And so I meet a lot of founders that have really, really great ideas. And you look at their projections and they're growing, even in their projections, not even what's actually happening, they're only growing 80% year over year. And as a venture capital investor, I'm going to give you more leeway and I may look deeper into what you're doing because this is my focus and I love investing in Black entrepreneurs. And I understand that we have not had the same foundational education. I went through it. I didn't have that same education when I started building. And so I give a little bit of grace, and sometimes I'll kind of push founders to think bigger. But other venture capitalists are not going, they're going to look at your deck and they're going to never answer your email, or they're just going to say, no, we're going to pass. They're not going to give you a good reason. And so to give you some clarity there, as a venture capitalist investing in early stage companies, I need you growing at 2, 3, 400% year over year in the first couple of years. Now, as your revenue grows and you get a lot bigger, then that can slow down a bit, and not drastically. You still want to be growing 100% year over year, but in the early stages, I need to see you growing. I need to see you going from 100K to 500K, from 500K to 2.5, 3 million. Like those are the types of jumps that we need to see in venture capital because we have to exit our fund within 10 years. And the only way we do that is that if you grow at that pace. And I just think a lot of founders don't truly understand how to approach venture capitalists to get the capital. And I think if we start to bridge those education gaps, I think we'll have less founders that are angry at the investors around town that, we're not giving them money, we're not writing checks, we're not doing what we said we were going to do. And they can also spend that energy focused on building the business that they have set out to build. And then we'll also bring more early stage capital into the environment. And all of that becomes wealth generating activity. And so that education piece, I think, is an area that we all really need to focus on in 2025.
Absolutely, absolutely. And really, I love the answer that you gave, because a lot of, a lot of founders, there's like this built up, there's this built up, I mean, for lack of a better word, just anger, right? It's built up anger and frustration towards investors because, it's just not understood. Why aren't you investing? Like you see white people getting this capital without with just an idea, and they already have like a baked out product. So for you to be able to explain that, that's gold. I'm pretty sure it's gold for a lot of people in these comments. So I actually want to shift over to Candace actually. Candace, like I met you a few years ago. We stayed in contact, love what you're building with my Ivana. And I mean, from over the course of 10 years, you've grown significantly, from a customer standpoint, from a revenue standpoint. The question I want to ask you is, you know, when you think about what Atlanta has done well in terms of supporting you, and when you think about what Atlanta could do better, I guess what would you like to see, in the future? Like, what would you like to see, to make sure that companies like you are thriving, especially if you've been 10 years in business, over what, 7 million in revenue? What would you like to see?
Yeah, I remember hearing that quote, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. And I was like, I don't know if I can make it 10 years, but here we are. It'll be 13 this year. And to piggyback off of what Barry was sharing, the main question is, how do you get to the growth that investors want to see, right? A lot of us are not even making it to that point to be VC backed. We just closed our seed round last year after 12 years. And the reason being is that I really see it's two things. One, we don't have the early stage capital to build the product, to be honest, to build that quality product that gets a product market fit and to start gaining the traction that investors want to see. So I think that, Atlanta as an ecosystem, we do well with galvanizing behind companies, right? But how do we get the product right? If we're talking about Atlanta Black tech and building tech companies, that is an advantage that other ecosystems have had that we necessarily haven't because of the reasons that Barry pointed out. A lot of investors weren't as familiar in investing in tech companies. A lot didn't understand what it actually takes to prove out your product, right? To build out and get the traction that's expected. And so in addition to that, more execution support is needed. So how do we take education to execution now? Because I did all the programs. I know we got all the programs, right? How do we take that to execution, right? Was the biggest gap too. And honestly, to be fair, as founders, building great products, it does take time, right? But I think that we need better operational knowledge and execution knowledge at these early stages to build a product that sticks and to be able to have, again, the knowledge, the networks, the expertise. And again, all these things take money too. So there are expectations of us at founders that we can't meet because we don't have the traction. We don't have the traction to support it. So that is where I see it, it's our biggest gap, but it's also our biggest area of opportunity that I'll touch on more later on because as an ecosystem, again, I believe that all the skills are here. The knowledge and insight is here, but there's been this gap of how to move it into execution to be able to present your business the way a VC wants to see it, right? And so for us, and I'll just speak, for our company. Early on, we were able to raise money, through startup accelerators, angel investors. Shout out to Mike Ross. He was like the only angel investor, putting in the first check into a lot of our companies, right, over a decade ago. And so many more angel investors have now come, to the table. And from there, I did a bunch of pitch competitions. So it's kind of like, especially as Black founders, is raising capital by any means necessary and then putting it into the product and then just getting it again from point A to point B. And so I think that to master that and just to be honest, as a founder, the resilience that it takes to stay in the game, it gets really tough. And that's, we get weary. I'm just, being honest. And, that's where great communities like Goody Nation does come in. And so I believe that as a community, if we can figure out how to move our companies to execute and hit the metrics that do make us more investable, we will start to close that gap a lot sooner. For our product, we started out with the hair analysis kit, similar to 23andMe for your hair. So once we had enough capital just to get that product, we just grew through customer acquisition and getting the word out. Press really fueled our business for many years. And I think that's something that we do have an advantage on and something that we could do even more, telling our stories, right? Our stories, the press, it fueled our business, pretty much to this day. And from there, I will say the turning point, though, was building out the technology to a point where we could now license it. And that shifted our model B2B. And Unilever became my first customer. We licensed it on to Shea Moisture for SheaMoisture.com. And then from there, I saw that, my traction could actually come B2B because with each licensed customer, we have millions of users coming from each channel. And so investors do need to see that strategic growth opportunity, right? Your competitive advantage. How do you protect that? And so I think as a community, right, if we know our mantra, Atlanta influences everything, how do we take that influence, education, and move it to execution and get our companies from stage to stage? So that is how we were able to stay in the game. And also knowing that Atlanta is the hair capital of the world. So where else can I do this? Where else should I be able to do this? And so tapping into that more, I think we have the ingredients, but let's master the formula.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to stay in this area for a little while. And this next question is actually framed kind of catered towards Barry and Bahija. So Barry, I mean, you've been a founder who've actually exited. You're now also a managing partner for Collab Capital. So you understand the funding path to from idea to inception. And Baija, your background from being from banking, for also now from being in investment banking to also being a VC as well. You understand the landscape of just the funding path from idea to inception. So my question is, how important is angel investing? Atlanta is, filled with individuals who are, working high paying jobs, where they fit into that criteria of an accredited investor. So for all individuals who are curious about angel investing, my first question is, one, why is it important? And then two, what tips do you have for individuals who are interested in angel investing and participating? Baija, I'll start with you.
I think why it's important, if you're an accredited investor, obviously depending on how much liquidity you have, it's always good to diversify your portfolio. So if you're, invested in the equity markets, you're invested in the debt markets, there's so many different areas that you could be investing in, and alternatives is one of them. So venture capital, private equity, depending on kind of how much liquidity you have will dictate, what is your check size and what your resulting like equity position would be. But I think it is important. There's plenty of people who wrote checks into companies, and whether you have your friend or your cousin or your uncle is starting a company and you get in a friends and family round, so it's super early, and that company turns out to be Uber, you can make a lot of money. But if we're thinking about tips, and who should be an angel investor or just like expectations, I think it starts with managing expectations. So it's certainly a high risk, high reward place to be playing in. You have to be willing to lose money. So whatever check that you're writing, be absolutely willing to say goodbye to that money, because the odds are, if you invest in 10, 20 companies, maybe one of them will return your capital. So you have to be willing to lose your money, I would say. I always advise people who want to be angel investors to invest in what they know. So if you have a background in finance or banking, consider investing in fintech. If you have a background in healthcare, consider investing in health tech. If you have a background in cybersecurity, invest in cybersecurity startups, because you want to be able to conduct your own due diligence. There is such a thing as like investor bias, where some investors will get in on a deal just because another investor invested in it and they're like, oh, that's like the seal of approval. But everybody will have losers in their portfolio. And if you're going to be investing your money, you should absolutely be able to conduct your own due diligence. Also, regardless of what your check size is and what your resulting equity position is, whether it's de minimis or not, you're still an owner in the company. So if you are an owner, you should be thinking about how you can actually support those companies. If you have a background in cybersecurity and you're investing in a cybersecurity startup, think about, how you can support the company. Can you make customer introductions? Can you make investor or distribution partner introductions to help actually bring revenue to the company and to help them grow? And I'd also say, like, as you're thinking about sourcing, how do you find startups to invest in? One thing that you can do is like let VCs know that you're wanting to angel invest, and what your check size is, what your criteria is. Sometimes, like, in our portfolio, we'll have founders who are raising a bridge round. So like a round in between, like maybe a seed and a series A that's smaller, that, we could have angel investors come into to write a check. And I'll actually put a link in the group chat where our other GP, Jill Burke Solomon, started a Google forum where she collected information on angel investors. And so when some of our portfolio companies have like bridge rounds, for example, to bring capital in, she sends that deal out to this like listserv, and whoever is interested can write a check and can get the insight from us as well on the viability of the business, the projections, and so on and so forth. I'd also say joining like pitch competitions is super helpful, because one, it's a way to get deal flow, and two, it's a way for you to see how the panel of judges like what questions are they asking, and those questions you can take back and ask for yourself as you're evaluating deals to invest in. And then I'd also say, as a last tip before I pass it to Barry, join angel networks and learning programs. So whether it's, Black VC has the Black Venture Institute, which teaches like executives, accredited investors, how to become an angel, and provides a community of people over which you can collectively invest, whether you're investing individually or forming a syndicate. TIE Atlanta is another one. I judged a few of their pitch competitions. They kind of come together to deploy capital. and also equity wings through Goody Nation and Black VC's partnership is another area where you can learn and collectively invest.
Yeah, and
Hey,
B hit
Barry.
on.
Hey, I was gonna say, B gave such a strong answer
Yeah,
towards
that's what I
what
was about to
angel
say. I don't
investors.
need
Yeah,
to. He's
nah,
solid.
perfect, perfect. Nah, yeah, that was definitely solid. Actually, Grant, man, I wanna shift to you. So, Grant, me and you, jumped on the call earlier, and we just had questions. And we were talking about just what the in general, what the Atlanta ecosystem does well, and then we talk about like other states and things that we can do here and probably do better. We had a conversation about that earlier, and I was thinking about the question I wanted to ask you. So, in light of what we spoke about earlier, what are some things that we do well here in Atlanta, and ultimately, and what could we improve on?
Yeah. I was thinking about it. Also, when we first talked about it, was through the lens of policy. So, I was really thinking about the kind of anti-DEI. I know people have covered that in the earlier panels, but there are kind of some things that, from a policy standpoint, really important to build a technology ecosystem or entrepreneurship ecosystem, enhancing education and skills development, facilitating, the exchange of information around technology and innovation, like really critical. Obviously, improving access to capital, and then promoting awareness and networking. So, since I've come to Atlanta, I've noticed that obviously, well, we have the benefit of having the mayor's office. You got Donnie that's really active. There have been some really good things that have happened around there. So they formed this ACES collaborative, for the universities and colleges in the Atlanta ecosystem. And they've been really intentional about making sure that the AUC, Spelman, Clark Atlanta, Morehouse School of Medicine has been actively involved. So I think on the education, front, been doing a good job in terms of making sure that there's parity around opportunity and education, kind of aligning the work that the colleges are doing. I think that's been fantastic. Promoting awareness. I mean, you'll hear a lot of people talking about it. Atlanta's push to be a top 10 ecosystem, right? So that's coming because the mayor's office is so laser focused, or top 5, so laser focused on that as an objective. And as part of the ACES collaborative, and Donnie probably will touch on it, the research report was developed that highlighted some of the things that Atlanta, is really good at, particularly as it relates to its Black tech ecosystem. So obviously, have strong colleges and universities, have a lot of students that stick around, high density of Black tech talent in the area. So that part is all fantastic. But again, if I think specifically on the Black tech ecosystem side, so I've come to Atlanta from DC, and a couple of things that the mayor's office did there for inclusive innovation, I think would be beneficial here also. So one of the things was developing an inclusive innovation incubator that had this partnership with Howard University, again, to make sure that access to innovation and support was distributed throughout the city and not just clustered around the big R1 PWI institutions. So I think that was a major initiative in DC. I think that would be beneficial here also. The other thing that they did was around capital. So put out a competitive call. So the inclusive incubator was also competitive. It was chosen to be placed at Howard, but competitive around who managed it. They also put a competitive bid out for an inclusive innovation fund. So to attract professional fund managers, again, to make investments in the Black and brown entrepreneurs to make sure that there's equity around funding. So, again, I think those are a couple of concrete things that could enhance the Atlanta ecosystem, and made even more important by, kind of what might not be there from federal support. So you look at the edict that came out from the president. Just literally right before I joined this call, got off a call with somebody from the federal government. People were scrambling around. Some people were put on furlough. Other people are revising what they have on websites and literature, et cetera. So it's created quite a bit of confusion. But there's uncertainty around, programs like 8A, something that provides opportunity to Black founders, right? There are questions about what happens with MBDA, something that provides access to capital, access to networking. And certainly I do agree that, we need philanthropy to come in. One of the other areas that we need to come in is local government to help fill the hole.
Listen, Grant, I see why Joey really fought for you to be on this panel again this year, because you're just a wealth of knowledge, an exact, definite resource directory. So, definitely thank you. And I'm pretty sure everybody in the comments thanks you. This is what I like to call a lightning round. So I want each person on this panel to go around and say what it is exactly how people can engage with your organization. For example, Baija, what can people in this chat, how can they engage with Black VC, Khadijah, Lift Incubator, et cetera? So I'll start with you, Candace.
Okay, yes, I love this question because it's actually something I've been ideating on for a very long time, after being in this summit. And I want to propose a model that we can adopt to move from ideation, connection to execution. So everyone's familiar with the PayPal mafia, right? I know they're not the best example right now, given the state of the industry, but I think that one thing that they did master was how these founders and early employees strategically work together behind the scenes to grow that company, but also look at all the companies that were able to start from the wealth that was produced from PayPal, right? Tesla, LinkedIn, Palantir, SpaceX, YouTube, Yelp. And a lot of them came from Silicon Valley's college ecosystem, right? So I believe Atlanta can do the same thing, right? We have the AUC, we have Georgia Tech, we have the skills, talent, everything here. So how do we take our influence and move it into execution? So I talked to Joey about this. I talked to Rayshawn. Me and Mike Ross have been talking about this for a while. And this concept I've put together is what I'm calling mafia movements. And it's a way where we can form mafias behind each company to strategically come together because, let's be honest, one of our shortcomings as a culture is we're not moving collectively together, right? Everyone has been doing their own thing, building their own thing. But if we can strategically come together, I believe that we can hit our goals really fast. And so the mafia movement is going to be to help us capitalize and actualize the power of our cultural capital to scale businesses through our gifts, talents, resources, relationships, and networks. And so I want to put my Ivana as the guinea pig because we're at a significant inflection point of growth in the market. And when I look at the numbers of, our budget, what we're spending, right? I could put $300,000 into ads for Facebook, again, which is going to a company that does not necessarily, that doesn't, he actually said it, that is not in our best interest. I could actually pour that into our own community and probably reach our goals even faster. So this is what I want to propose, the Mafia movement. And it's for everyone in this ecosystem to join a mafia, get behind a company, and contribute your skills. So that's in marketing and business development and technology development and even funding. In the same way that we set aside like our employee option pool, we're going to set aside an equity pool
Oh, Candace,
where
hold
you
on, hold
can.
on. No, I'm about
Okay.
to say not too much. We don't want to give away everything just
Okay,
yet.
okay.
Maybe
I don't
say,
want to give away.
we'll
I don't want to give
yeah.
everything, but just to show you how it works, I'm going to drop the link in the chat. So if you're interested in joining this and being a part of how this works, That's what I want to propose that we do. And then we could get behind one company every quarter when we come together as a summit. And I'm happy to chat with anyone about this, but I just want to put it out there as a model. And I think that we could do it. I think we could build true businesses together. So join the
Absolutely.
mafia, join the Maya Ivana Mafia, and we'll talk more.
Absolutely. I'm gonna pass it over to Barry.
Fantastic, Candace. Love the idea. And so I'll be brief. I wish I had some time to get back to you so you can finish. But
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk.
In a similar vein, like just support portfolio companies, i.e., it's supporting Black folks. That's who we invest in. They need customers. If you see a Black product out there, i.e., you heard Isaac earlier with fan base, jump on the platform, support it, go invest in it. We just have to get behind each other. And I know what Candace is talking about is one way to do it. And I love the concept, love the idea. But just support founders. And then last, if you do know any Black founders, send them to our website, have them put their stuff. And I said, we're building a database. Like I said, we want to be able to invest in all of them, but we do want to be able to somehow send them some education material, just send them something to support them. So yeah, I'll be brief. I know we're up on time.
Okay, Bahija.
I'd say ways that you can help very quickly. We're always hosting events, so if you have space where we can host our event, if you would like to be a sponsor for one of our events or a partner to co-host, and I'd say I'm going to share a couple of links to our Black VC Summer Soiree on Martha's Vineyard. Very quickly, I co-founded the Black VC Boston chapter and originally curated this event. This year will be our third year doing it, and we're looking for sponsors to put it on. Obviously, there's been a rollback in DEI funding, but this was a really, really well-attended and regarded event that we want to continue to host. So I'll put some links to the recaps. And if you're interested in serving as a partner or sponsor to us in any capacity, please connect with me on LinkedIn. And in the blurb, just let me know, in what way you'd like to support.
Absolutely. And I may have some options for you too. Just connect with me offline. Khadijah.
I am so happy that I'm here with Candace because I'm gonna hit you up after this. Kim, another founder of Villy, and I have had a very similar idea. We are hosting a co-working day for Black founders in Atlanta on Friday at the Russell Center. So come through to that. I'll drop the link in the chat. And Kim has been dropping the link in the chat. And we're trying to create more community for Black founders, but also build real shit together. Excuse my French. I'm gonna just go ahead and put it out there since it's almost 9 o'clock. And so I am all about the mafia movements. I'm all about partnership and not working in our different silos. So I'm happy to plug in there, and I'm going to do that. And I want everybody that's in this chat, that's in this room, to commit tonight to doing something within your power to support Black founders in this city, whether it is being a beta tester for people, whether it's posting on LinkedIn about folks, whether it's downloading people's app, making a small investment in people's company, helping somebody with their marketing, helping them install a Google tag for their analytics on their website, something. I and Kim have created a form where people can literally just say who you are and what you have to give to support Black founders, and then also what you need help with. And I want to leave here with action. I am so exhausted of the talking and the railing online and the waiting till the next event to do the same thing again. I want us to really, really be focused on how do we support one another, because as we learned last year in November, we all we got. So that's what I'm about, and that's what I think everybody can do. And then beyond that, if we're doing personal plugs, I'm raising a fund, as I mentioned previously, and our minimum check size is $10,000. We want to do what Bahija spoke about, which is bring more Black people into this ecosystem, into angel investing, into the venture space, educate them around the space, and activate them as Black angel investors who will go on to make at least 5 additional investments into Black-led companies after they invest with us. That is our goal, create a new ecosystem of funding and founding powered completely by Black folks. And so if you want to learn more about Victive Ventures, hit me up. Come to our demo day for the Lift Incubator next week. Like all the things, everything Black. I would say be as focused on what you can give as you are on how people can help you. So, yeah.
All right, and last and certainly not least, Grant.
All right, yeah, I'll continue with the theme. So at the center, we work with early stage founders. So both our students, who might be nascent founders, and also the community. So I would say we have a couple of asks. So you often find founders who are not tech founders. I was a tech founder, so it's a pet peeve of mine. I like to see a team that has a hipster hacker hustler, right? So you have the complete thing. So you don't have to go outside to build. So I'd love to have, particularly given the community we're talking to, people, who we can refer our founders to help form more complete teams. Love to have mentors when we have those teams to help them grow and scale, and also have people who, particularly for those who are building enterprise apps, who can provide introductions to customers, right, through corporate customers. So go to the cbecenter.org. There is a mentor link where you can register to be a mentor. It'll just provide contact, and we'll get back with you, and we can see which way you might help. But I think all of us, want to see a more cohesive ecosystem, right? How do we build better Black startups, have a more vibrant tech ecosystem?